Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers can learn more about the business and the seller to help them make a buying decision. Now, all of the business details, which include the type of business it is, how much revenue and profit it makes, and all of the assets included in the sale can be found on the business listing. To view this information, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for this business listing number, which is listed in the video thumbnail and the description. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And if after listening, you want to take an even deeper dive into the business to perform your due diligence before potentially purchasing this business, you can unlock this listing to look through all of the business information, which includes the domain, the products, the P&L, and more. So can you tell us a little about your background in building and running online businesses?
So first, I just want to take a second to thank you for taking the time to listen to these questions, and I hope you find them interesting and informative in helping you make a decision on whether to buy this business or not. One of the first things I want to address, though, is, the elephant in the room, and that is that you probably think this business has to do with gaming, video gaming, or something like that. Maybe you think it's about gambling. It's none of those things. It's actually the tabletop gaming industry, and don't let that frighten you away, because I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by how lucrative this industry can be. In fact, Hasbro did a study and released in 2020 that the tabletop gaming industry was worth about $50 billion at the time globally, which at the time was already underestimated because we had COVID, and there was a huge spike in growth in the tabletop gaming industry over COVID, and it's easily now $250 billion worldwide, if not more, especially after a couple different pieces of media have come out in the last few years. It's been absolutely massive, the growth in this industry, and it's still growing and still going strong. So that's a really good positive thing about it. So don't let that dissuade you. Listen on, dear friend, and let's see if we can answer some of these questions for you. So I started the business in 2017 after I was made redundant from a major U.S. technology corporation. The fact that I was made redundant kind of gave me a bit of a chance to reevaluate what I was doing with my career at that point. So up until then, I'd had 25 years working in customer service and support and technical support, and then growing into middle management, upper management, doing operations and things like that. And I just wasn't that happy with it. It didn't, scratch an itch that I had that I didn't even know I had at that point, which was I really, really, really love growing businesses, and I love, making people happy in terms of what I do within a business. So I kind of soul searched there for about 3 months and realized there was an opportunity in this tabletop gaming niche, and I have a strong passion for it. And so I decided to give it a go and utilize the skills that I had acquired in my previous life to, give the best go at it. And when I worked in the U.S. multinational, my clients there were Facebook, Google, and Twitter. And particularly within Facebook and Google were the ads element of things, and strongly in Facebook. I knew, in fact, how to get in front of a customer at the exact moment that they wanted to buy my product. And that was stood to be the strongest experience that I had that was, immediately helpful. Because when I started out on Etsy and doing craft stuff, and very quickly realized that wasn't going to work, and I needed to move into a lower price point, a lower barrier of entry for customers to get into the business, so that then maybe they would go for the craft stuff later on. And very quickly, the company was much more about that side of the business than the craft business. And that was because I was very quickly able to utilize Facebook ads to the, extremely effective. Like, I was invited to a Shopify EMEA event in Galway in 2019, I think it was, or 2020. And, one of the executives at Shopify asked me, how my ads were going, what I was getting my ROAS for the ads. And I told him at the time it was like between 8 and 12 ROAS. And his, mouth just dropped. He was like, why are you not throwing hundreds of thousands into that? It was extremely effective. And it still is to this day, extremely effective. ROAS runs anywhere from 4 to 13%. At the bottom of the funnel, it's usually 8 to 13%. Or not percent, 8 to 13 ROAS. Our Facebook ads, while that's also listed as a bit of a weakness, and we'll talk about that later on, it's also one of the things that have allowed us to grow as strongly and build the brand strongly and as effectively and as quickly as we have.
So why are you selling the business now instead of keeping it and growing it further?
The biggest reason I'm looking to sell is because I feel that at this point in the business's life, I'm probably the thing keeping it from growing because I don't have the experience and the knowledge of how to take it to the next steps. And it realistically needs an owner that knows how to do that knows, the things I don't know, has the connections I don't have to take it to the next level. And I care too much about the business to be the reason why the business is as successful as it could be. So that's the first and primary reason. And the second one is because there's a lot of other things I want to do. As I mentioned earlier, I have the serial entrepreneur kind of bug. I want to go out and start other businesses, and I want to take them to the next, build them up and take them to another niche market that hasn't seen growth or hasn't seen anybody servicing it, So yeah, I just want to do different things and enjoy it. New things and see this company grow and grow and grow and become, it already is one of the top leaders in the industry, in its niche industry, but it could become a top leader in the tabletop gaming industry, I think, if the person who gets it wants it to.
What did you learn from building this business that worked for you, or what do you think contributed to the success you experienced with this business?
So I mentioned in question 1 that Facebook ads was a really strong experience that I had that worked really well. But beside that, there's about 3 other things I want to talk about that I think are really important for why this business is so successful and why potentially it could be something that could turn your other businesses even more successful than they are currently. So let me talk a little bit about that. First, it's around authenticity. You can buy somebody with, knowledge of Facebook ads, you can hire somebody with knowledge of Facebook ads to run them for you. But you can't buy authenticity from customers. Customers are very intelligent nowadays. They know when you're drop shipping, and they don't like it. They don't like drop shipping, unless they're expecting it, which in some cases they are. But generally speaking, they don't like drop shipping. They want to know that they're dealing directly with the customer, with the company that they're paying the money to. They're also incredibly loyal to that, and they're very mouthy about it. If they know you're drop shipping, they're going to mouth off. They're going to tell everyone and their mother that you're drop shipping. And they also are they don't like to wait, right? Generally speaking, drop shipping would require shipments from, China or, some type of 3PL somewhere. And generally speaking, they don't want to wait for it. And that leads me into the next thing that we did well, which was that we set up in Ireland, and we're using Ireland as a base. So Ireland is a really great place to run a business because you get strong tax breaks. It's the last English-speaking country in the EU, so it gives you access to the EU market. And also, it has very, very good logistics background. All of the planes fly through Dublin, like DHL and the rest of global mails and things like that run through. They all run through Dublin or Shannon. And the cost to send things from here is cheaper than it is to send things, like, say, from the States, right? It's more expensive to send an item from New York to San Diego than it is to send from Ireland to San Diego. It costs us, say, €3. And it'll cost you $7 to $10 to send the same thing within the U.S., and ours will get there in the same amount of time, if not quicker. So the logistics side of things for Ireland has a really strong logistics backbone. They have a really strong tax system, but they also, and this is the last thing, has strong SME supports, whether that means hiring new people, and they're the local enterprise office or Enterprise Ireland, depending on how big it is, they will fund sometimes you getting wanting to hire somebody new, or, even just if you're looking to do grants for certain things, etc. There's strong support there within the business. And those are 4 things we did really well: the Facebook advertising, the brand authenticity, and customer service as well. Side of that, talk a little bit about that maybe in another date. Having the logistics based, we did logistics really well by doing it here to help, bolster the authenticity and the brand loyalty part of it. And then lastly, having it based in Ireland and having the strength of the Irish government supporting SMEs was a huge boon as well.
Got it. So was there anything you tried that didn't work out as well?
I kind of mentioned before we tried Google Ads. It didn't work. Spent so much money on it. It just didn't work. And I think it's because it's not, this industry in particular, these customers in particular, I think are very, very, very clued in to how this works. They are not dumb when it comes to the internet. Then they know that they're being sold. When they click on Google and they type in our product and they see it, they know right off the bat. They're not interested in buying it from a Temu or a whatever. They want to buy and support local. And so I think that's a big reason why Google Ads didn't work for us, is because it wasn't the customer profile, if you will. Another thing that didn't work for us was trying to be what we weren't. So I initially started off the business and kind of had my face as being me, myself, and my family as kind of being the face of it. And I quickly realized that wasn't going to work. Because, that was great for a really small business, but I didn't want this to be a small business. I wanted to grow it. And so I needed to quickly move into a space where I wasn't required to be for the business to be functional. And so I very quickly did that there a year or two ago. I started moving into that. And now it doesn't require me at all. I don't have to be, and we'll get into that in question 5 in terms of the work required, but no, this business doesn't require me at all, because I'm no longer the face of it. When customers email us, they email and address the company name directly, which I think is pretty cool, because they think the company is a person. I don't know. They have such a strong brand loyalty towards the company that they reference the company as the individual that they're talking to, which is pretty cool.
Can you describe the amount and the type of work that you do on this business to maintain it?
There is little to no work required on your part in terms of this business. I have hired 2 very competent, intelligent, and very hardworking individuals as the digital marketing manager and the stock and fulfillment lead. These guys are able to run it without me being involved. They're incredibly responsible. They love the company. They love the customers. They love the industry. They don't even need me. And I set it up that way on purpose. As I said in the previous question, I knew that, this company needed to be able to stand on its own 2 feet without me being the face of it, and we've moved into that direction strongly in the last year, preparing the company for sale realistically. So you don't need to be involved in it all, but you will probably obviously have a business manager or somebody who would check in and make, stock purchase approvals and things of that nature. But realistically, it's how long is a piece of string. If you want to be involved, you can. If you don't, you don't, right? And that's really it. You might be surprised to hear, but it doesn't require really any work from you.
Now, if you were to keep the business, what are some ways you would try to grow it?
There are so many growth opportunities here. I'm going to run through the ones that are kind of off the top of my head. First and foremost is Facebook FBA. First and foremost is Amazon FBA. So I have been approached twice by Amazon to list on them. I had some previous experience with Amazon, which wasn't particularly positive. So then I wasn't really sure I wanted my brand on there. So, at the time I wasn't really sure that's where I wanted to go with it. But that's absolutely an opportunity for you. And I think a massive one, because you have the experience and knowledge and the know-how to be able to do it. I think that's a no-brainer that you would take it, onto FBA. And if you don't have that and you're looking for a company to take on the FBA, well, this is a perfect opportunity for you to do that. Next is, Walmart, eBay's, and them of the world. Again, we're not listed on them, partially because I'm based over here in Ireland as opposed to back in the States, but also because I wasn't even really aware of the Walmart and marketplace, being honest with you, so that's an opportunity. And eBay wasn't really something I felt would potentially be a good market for it, but that doesn't mean I'd definitely be wrong there. And then the third to last is B2B, and I think it's actually your strongest growth opportunity. It's the one I'll be focusing on going forward, is growing into B2B. So the long and the short of it is that within this industry, there's very few distributors, and they have had little to no competition, and so they behave that way. And, after speaking with other business owners and people who are in similar industries and doing this, it's a no-brainer to just go out on our own and start offering wholesale directly to retailers. And we have seen a huge response to this. It is overwhelming response from retailers wanting this exact thing from us. And when we go out and we send out emails and, we compile lists of potential retailers, send out an email, we get the first email, which shouldn't really get any responses. We would get loads of people signing up for retail, and then each subsequent email that goes out, the kind of follow on from that, we get additional ones. So it's hugely ripe for growth opportunity within that sector. And that's just basically because the distributors have been taking the mick for the last few years. And, a company like ours can just come in there and just start absolutely killing it. So that's probably your best growth opportunity aside from FBA. And lastly, I think, and I'm going to talk about this again in risks, but lastly is conventions. So I know conventions for, at least for the Empire Flipper team, they see that as being a negative, but I actually see this as being quite positive for you. So again, you might be laughing going, yeah, well, I don't want to have to worry about conventions and all the things involved with that, and I totally get that. But hear me out for a second. So conventions are one way to get in front of your customer in a limited time frame where they're going to spend a shed ton of money and you don't have to pay lease money. You might have to pay for the stall fee temporarily, but you don't have to pay on leases or anything like that. And you get overcharge them to your heart's content, and you get in front of them. You build authenticity. You build, just feedback around products and what they're looking for, and you can make a huge amount of money. So to give you an idea, in one weekend, and we weren't even trying really hard, it was a two-day weekend, we made $25,000. And I know, depending on how you set up, you could easily make 40 to 50 grand in a weekend. And that's just one weekend at one con. And the total investment in that was probably less than, it was $8,000 or something like that. So, honest to God, it's a huge growth opportunity for you, particularly as COVID has gone out. More and more people are wanting to go out and go to these conventions. And I think it would be a no-brainer to not utilize them. They're not required. Obviously, not doing them isn't going to change things for you, but I think it's definitely a wasted opportunity.
And what are the biggest risks with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
I don't believe that there's any unique risks to the business aside from, any risks that you probably already know of if you already run an e-commerce or online business. One thing I will call out is because the team is small, there is risk there in having disruption if one or both of the guys are gone sick. That's easily mitigated, obviously, by having backup there or bringing on some additional people, which wouldn't do any harm realistically here, because it's something I was already thinking about, having one additional person in the stockroom and one additional person in social media. Depending on how you want to work it or depending on what you're doing, it may not be really an issue. But that's one risk, I would say, is just the smallness of the team. Now, having said that, and I think I mentioned it before, but these guys are extremely loyal and hardworking, and to the point that I let them basically just run the day-to-day of the business. There's very little I need to do. Your involvement in it also does not need to be huge in that regard. Another potential risk, and I say potential, it's very low risk, but that's importing, because a lot of our suppliers are based in China. If relations between China and the West go really, really south, obviously that can have an impact on suppliers. We did see that when the war in Ukraine happened. One supplier we had in Russia, we had to kind of cut ties with them. Now, that wasn't a big deal. It was only one product, and we weren't that sad about losing it. But if there was a major international incident and China and the West broke down, that could be a major issue. Having said that, the country here has worked very strongly on building strong relationships with China, and I do not foresee there being any issues with importing from China. And also within that, we have very strong relationships with suppliers, and some of those suppliers have actually started to move their operations outside of China. One of the suppliers has their operation, I think, in Hong Kong, and the other one has an operation, I think, in Malaysia, or they've moved more operations around there. So I think they're already seeing that as a potential risk of, depending on what could happen, and they're kind of trying to mitigate that as well. So for the most part, I don't see any major risks here that you would need to worry about, aside from, as I said, any other normal risk that you have running an online e-commerce business.
And how much support are you willing to offer a buyer who acquires this business?
I'm absolutely up to negotiation. Definitely the standard 30 days of email and phone support, 100%. As I've said to the Empire Flipper team, I'm more than happy to discuss that with the potential buyer, whether it means I stay on as a consultant for a while, whether, I run the business for a little while for you while you kind of sort things out. I don't know. It depends on the buyer and depends on what they want and what that looks like. But absolutely happy to discuss it with any buyer.
And regarding the sale of this business, just confirming you commit to a non-compete?
Yes, just confirming my commitment to the non-compete clause in the terms and conditions.
And are you open to negotiating something like an earnout?
I am not interested in doing an earnout. I prefer an all-cash upfront deal, but I am open to considering an earnout based on the details and the buyer.
Now, putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
Look, I'll be honest with you. I think the growth opportunities sell it itself, especially if those are things that you're interested in. If you're looking for an FBA business to get into, or, you have that experience, you can grow it there. It also has the wholesale opportunities and the other ones. I think as well, another really strong reason why is because it's based in Ireland. That's a lower cost of logistics, strong business supports, educated population, a strong tax incentive-based country, access to EU market, access to the UK market as well. That's something we didn't talk about before. Ireland has a very unique relationship with the UK, and that's built through Northern Ireland as well. You have access to the UK. It's a hugely positive place to be based, and a reason that this business, I think, is quite strong. And last but not least, it's because you have a niche that is fast growing, that is incredibly strong, loyal customer base within this business. I think you couldn't get a better business to buy on Empire Flippers than this one, even though I'm completely biased.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing is still for sale, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for this business listing number, which is listed in the video thumbnail and the description. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So thanks for joining us, and until next time.